Hello everyone, how's it going? And welcome to my Wild Rift tier list for patch 4.0c. This is the last patch cycle for 4.0. We got a couple of weeks until we get patch 4.1 with all the tank changes, with all the tank items as well. So maybe this tier list will change quite a lot when the new patch comes out in a couple of weeks time. But for now, there's only a few little changes that have happened in this tier list. So as always, I'm going to go through all the changes that I made, go through some of the champions that I want to talk about. But if you do have any questions, any thoughts on any of the changes, then let me know down in the comments. I will read them all and I'll make sure I reply to every single one of you. And now first up, let's talk about the Baron lane. Now there's a few changes to few champions in the Baron lane. The first thing I did want to talk about though is I have moved Gwen up into the S+ tier. I put her in the S tier before, and to be honest, there are many champions in the S tier that can definitely move up into the S+ tier, but I felt like moving Gwen up into the S+ tier is very fair, to be honest, because she's just so strong right now. Her scaling potential is absolutely insane. I've seen a lot of Gwens completely pop off. Yes, her laning phase is a little bit difficult, kind of the same as a Carly in a way, where her laning phase is also very, very difficult. But once you get 2-3 items, once you get a few levels under your belt, then you can just easily 1 versus 9 any single team fight, especially with Gwen as well, because she has her second ability, which doesn't allow people to auto attack her. She can then just dodge abilities and everything as well. And then she just has so much healing, so much true damage. It's absolutely disgusting. So I've moved Gwen up into the S+ tier. Other than that, not really too much else has changed. I haven't changed any of the other S+ tier champions. You know, Wukong's still very, very good, still very flexible with a lot of healing and also a lot of damage. Renekton, really strong early game powerhouse. Very, very strong during team fights as well. One of the best laning phase champions, I think, in the game. And Carly, I just briefly mentioned, but again, fairly weak during the early game. Once you get a few items, pretty insane. Jax is just a split push god with Fiora as well. These two champions are absolutely insane right now. If you do just want to sit in the side lane, keep split pushing with Hullbreaker, both are absolutely incredible. Jace is really, really good. Has 6 abilities available for him in the early game. Just really, really strong early game and still scales quite well into mid late game. Aatrox, no surprise, this champion's still absolutely broken. So much healing, so much crowd control, so much damage as well, still really good. Garen, really easy to play, really nice tank to play as well, still does a ton of damage. Very easy, very safe Baron laner to play. Camille, probably one of, if not the best Baron laners at the moment, especially after the changes that happened to her with all the buffs that happened. She did get a nerf quite recently, but she's still very strong. And Gwen I have spoken about. And as we go down, you know, the tier list, there are some champions, like I said, in S tier that could definitely move up. Champions like Gragas, which is, you know, who's very, very strong. You can play Gragas in many flexible ways as a tank or as a full AP champion. Irelia did receive a few changes this patch. They nerfed her base AD and her base attack speed on her passive, but they also increase the AP damage that you deal, so the magic damage that you deal with your passive. So you just have to make sure with Irelia now that you get your stacks on your first ability passive, and once you get your stacks fully upgrade, you know, fully stacked, I should say. That sounds really weird, stacks fully stacked. But once you get your passive fully stacked on your first ability, then you have the maximum amount of attack speed and the maximum amount of magic damage that you'll be able to deal. So really important to just make sure that that's on there. And Riven's another champion as well that can definitely move up into the S+ tier because she's very mobile. She does a lot of damage. She has insane carry potential. But all the other champions are still really good. You know, Shen's a pretty good tank. Struggles in the early game, doesn't really offer too much once you get a few items, but that's why Shen jungle is very strong at the moment. Darius is still pretty decent, you know, really good for team fights, fairly decent in laning phase. Set's pretty okay, especially after the changes that happened to him. His base damage in the early game is now really, really high because his base AD went up. Malphite, another good tank, same with Sion as well. They're both pretty good tanks. Just below that, Kennen, Olaf, Yone. These champions are okay. You can probably do fairly well on them, but just not as well as any of the S tier champions. Mundo, not really that strong, to be fair. Maybe will become strong once the tank changes come in. I'm very excited to see what the tank changes are going to do to tanks in the next update. Pantheon, even after his buff, still not that strong, unfortunately. Graves is down here, same with Singe as well, just not too great. Then you have Teemo, Trendemir, and Nasus, which are not too great, and then Kayle right at the bottom. So that's pretty much it for Baron lane. Let's take a look at the jungle. Jungle, again, not too many changes, to be honest with you. I think most of the jungle changes kind of expected, I guess. S+ tier champions have all stayed the same. There's not a single S plus tier or S tier champion that has changed. You know, Wukong's still very good at jungle, same as the Baron lane. A lot of healing, a lot of team fight potential. His jungle clear is not the best now, but he's still really, really strong. Aatrox's still really good in the jungle as well. Lee Sin really strong early game. Kha'Zix's insane late game, invisibility and everything. Olaf's still really good because you can just run around and just not care about any CC or any damage just coming towards you because you have insane healing. Lelia's still really good as well. And same with Diana with her one-shot potential. Again, plenty of S tier champions that could definitely move up into the S plus tier. You know, champions like Riven, again, with her mobility could be really good. Evelynn, if you're playing in lower elos, she can be definitely a lot stronger. Same with Shyvana as well. Because, you know, Evelynn just needs to farm up. The same with Shyvana. And then you can kind of 1v9 games, but the problem is that the early game in high elo games, you can kind of get punished with Evelynn and Shyvana, so you need to be a little bit careful. Ross Kane is still very, very good. 4 AP Gragas in the jungle is absolutely insane. Yone jungle still good. Fiora, Nuno, you know, all these champions are still insanely strong in the jungle, and I think any one of them that you pick up are just going to be as strong or just as good. As we move into the A plus tier, I have moved Nautilus up. Now, I haven't tested Nautilus just yet with the changes to the AP ratio on the third ability and also the ultimate. But maybe you can go for like some hybrid Nautilus build in the jungle now with maybe like Rod of Ages first item. Then you could build like Sunfire, Warmogs, you know, maybe sort of items like that. And go for like a hybrid AP/tank build. That could definitely work very well, you know, with Aftershock. I've seen a few people try like full AP Nautilus. I don't think it would work very well, to be honest with you. You could give it a try. Full AP Nautilus maybe is stronger than what I think, but I haven't had time to test it yet, unfortunately. But I think this sort of hybrid damage/tank build is probably the best way to go. Kind of similar to what you do with Nunu at times. You know, if you don't want to go full tank Nunu, you can go for like Rod of Ages into full tank to see how that goes. You know, Shen is still down here as well. Shen is still very, very strong in the jungle. Camille is still very strong as well. Same with Zed. Same with Rengar as well. Even after the nerfs that Rengar received, I still think Rengar is a very, very strong jungler. Just because his crit build is very, very strong. You can do a lot of damage. And also he takes towers very, very quickly. So he's just absolutely insane. Same with Gwen jungle as well. Still very, very strong. Stronger in the Baron lane, in my opinion, than jungle. But, you know, jungle Gwen can still work out. Pantheon as well is still down. I don't know why I scrolled this down. I didn't need to. Pantheon is still down in the A tier, even after the buffs. I mean, the buffs didn't really do too much. It's just your ultimate. You just get more armor penetration. But the problem with Pantheon is that it's very difficult to use your ultimate. It's very difficult to land your ultimate as well. So it is very, very difficult to kind of pull off with the buffs. And then Master Yi still sitting down in B tier. I think Master Yi is still one of the worst junglers right now. Even after changes, they're trying to move Master Yi from a full damage and full crit Master Yi to like this on hit Master Yi, which we'll maybe have to test out, you know, with like Blade Rune King, Wit's End, Phantom Dance, you know, items like that, like on hit items, which are normally quite good with Master Yi. But the thing is, recently, of like people have been building crit items like Navori Quick Blades, Solari Charge Blade, items like that. So we'll have to see how that changes things up. We'll have to see if maybe Master Yi deserves to be a bit higher, but for now, I don't think, you know, the champion is very, very strong. I don't think the champion is very good at all. Like, the changes doesn't really mean too much, in my honest opinion. Don't think there's anything else to say in the jungle, really. Like I said, not too many changes in this update because this is the last, you know, patch cycle for 4.0. So there's only like small changes here and there. Nothing too crazy. Most of the meta is pretty much going to stay the exact same. S plus tier, again, nothing has changed. The only nerf that happened was to Zoe. Zoe received a little bit of a nerf to her movement speed on her second ability. But other than that, you know, everything else is still, you know, pretty much the same. I don't think the Zoe movement speed means too much because she still does a lot of damage. She still has a lot of great lane phase pressure. I even saw Zoe Duralane being played recently, which was... which was quite a surprise to me, but I've seen Vex Duralane, I've seen Zoe Duralane carry. There's a bunch of things that you can do in the Duralane when you're playing AP champions, so no surprise really, but champions are still the same in the S plus and S plus tier. You know, Ahri, super safe champion to play, great pick potential and great mobility with her ultimate. Dino's still very strong, really strong during team fights. Lane phase is a little bit weak. You know, you do so much burst damage, especially with electrocute. Yone as well, still insanely strong, scales really well. Cassin again, weak lane phase, but once you reach level 13, get your 3 points in your ultimate, get a few items, you're really strong. Karma, very safe mid lane to play. A lot of shielding, a lot of damage. Great if you want to, you know, if you're a support and you get filled mid lane. Karma's a great champion to play. Carly as well, still really good. Vex and, you know, Zoe still also very good. Again, a couple of S tier champions that could definitely move up. You know, Irelia, Katarina. You know, these champions are really strong. The mages in the mid lane still really good, like Ziggs and Orianna as well. So got a couple of the AD carries as well, which is really good, especially Lucian. I do like to play Lucian a lot in the mid lane, probably because I'm a dual lane carry myself, or an ADC myself. So I do like to play Lucian. I do like to bully out some of the weaker early game champions, you know, like Akali, like Kassadin, like Dinah, like all these melee champions in the mid lane. If you're against them, you could definitely pick up like Lucian or Corki and just bully them out in the early game. 4 AP Gragas is still really good. Jace, Fizz, you know, all these champions really good, especially Yasuo as well. But some of these champions in S tier are a little bit more difficult to play, you know, like Irelia, Katarina, and Yasuo. That's why they're down in the S tier. Akshan, Veigar, Echo, and Kennen in the A+ tier. Akshan could definitely move up if you know how to play him. Again, he's one of them champions that, you know, his third ability could definitely do wonders for you, but could also be the death of you at the same time. It kind of depends on how you use your third ability, but you know, his passive, his invisibility is still very strong. He could definitely move up into the S tier. Veigar, Echo, and Kennen just not as strong in the mid lane at the moment. You know, Veigar doesn't really offer too much and can get really bullied by any of the assassins in the S+ tier. You do still have some good control in team fights though with your cage and also one-shot potential. Echo mid lane, it's okay. You can get a few trades off. You could do a little bit of damage, but not really too much. Kennen again doesn't really offer too much in the mid lane. Same with the A tier and the B tier champions. You know, most of these champions are kind of like one-shot potential. You know, like your Lux, like your Annie, like a Radiant Soul. You know, you kind of need advantage in the early game. You need to make sure you you use that mobility to your advantage to roam around the map and try and get advantages on the rest of the map. If you can't, and hey ho. I'm very curious when the Aurelion Soul rework is going to come to Wild Rifts, because that on PC League looks very cool. I'm very curious how that's going to kind of move over to Wild Rift, but we'll have to wait and see when that actually happens. But yeah, like I said, nothing else really to say there. Dual lane again, not really any other changes. Zeri obviously did receive a lot of big nerfs. I don't think Zeri is, I mean, obviously Zeri is weaker, but Zeri is still very strong if you have, you know, a shielding support like Lulu, like Janna, you know, even champions like Nami as well, which give you a little bit of shield from Aerie. Zeri's kind of similar to like Jinx in a way, and also Vayne, where your early game is fairly weak. I mean, Vayne's early game is like okay because you can use Brutal plus your first ability, but Zeri's early game is very weak. Same with Jinx as well. If you have a Lulu support or a Janna support by your side, then they can easily move up into S+ tier, you know, with all the shielding and the healing and also the health that Lulu can give to you. Zeri just becomes a 1 versus 9 beast. And like I said, you know, her damage is still absolutely insane. Her build path is still not changed at all. She's still a very strong champion, and I think she's okay. She's still pretty decent. I didn't move her down because I don't think she's as weak as like Ashe, Jhin, Orianna, Ziggs, Lux, Miss Fortune. You know, there's no way Zeri is as weak as, you know, Ashe or Jhin or Miss Fortune or, you know, anyone like that. I still think she deserves to be in the S tier with, you know, most of these champions. But S+ tier for me hasn't changed. You know, Caitlyn with her range is still very strong. Kai'Sa's still insane damage output, really early power spike that you can get with her. Tristana late game beast with her scaling. And then Lucian as well for his early game pressure, and also for, you know, his crit damage can also scale pretty well. But yeah, like I said, other than that, nothing else is too crazy. Everything else is pretty much the exact same. Pretty much the same with support as well. Now I've made a few little changes to support, and I'll explain why. I have moved Galio up. I do think Galio deserves to be an S tier. I think, especially with the buffs that he got as well in the most recent patch, I think Galio is a bit underrated as a support. I think that you have a lot of playmaking potential with Galio as support. Not only do you have your ultimate that can be really strong during team fights, but also you have a lot of playmaking potential in the early game, where you have your dash and you also have your taunt, so you can use that to your advantage. You also have a magic shield, so if you're against any of these AP you know, poke champions in the bot lane, like like Karma, like Nami. You can protect yourself a lot better, and also your items are pretty good as well. You know, you can go Bristlemoss first item. If you're against a lot of AP damage, you can either go for like Warmogs, Excited Siege Art, anything like that. You know, you got some really, really good items, and you're a really, really strong champion. But I didn't want like a crazy amount of champions to be in S tier, to be fair. So I was thinking, like, what in the S tier champions deserve to be kind of moved down? Janna's an interesting one. I did move Janna down. See, Janna's a weird one. I think Janna is strong, but the thing is with Janna is she's more of a reactive support than a proactive support, if that makes sense. So, you know, champions like Nami, Karma, you know, Thresh, Pike, Rakan, you know, all these champions are more to do with, you know, being proactive, whether it's your Nami wave, whether it's the Karma ultimate, playing aggressive, trying to make plays. You can't really do that with Janna, unfortunately. Janna is kind of more of a disengaged support where you're waiting for the enemies to make a decision, and then you can, you know, knock them up with your first ability, use your shield to help out your ADC, use your ultimate to heal up your whole team, you know, things like that. Yes, Lulu, you could say like it's kind of a reactive support, but Lulu's just absolutely broken with the stats that she gives. You know, most of the other champions are all to do with being proactive and making plays, whereas Janna's more to do with like, you know, reactive plays. You know, you're waiting for the enemies to kind of make a decision, which could kind of be a bit of her downfall. And I move Lux a little bit lower because I just don't think Lux support is really that strong. I think it can work. I think it's okay, but I don't think she deserves to be in the same tier as, you know, like most of the other enchanter supports like Yuumi, Lulu, you know, champions like that. And obviously, especially not with like Karma and Nami being in S+ tier. So yeah, that's my reasoning with moving some of these champions down. But like I said, it doesn't really mean too much. It's only moving down one tier. It's not like a drastic decrease all the way down to like B or C tier or anything like that. Yeah, pretty much everything else in the support role is exactly the same. Nothing else has really changed. You know, Karma and Nami still up there as well. And everything is still pretty good, to be fair. But yeah, anyway, like I said, it's just a quick short video with my updated tier lists. Like I said, nothing too crazy has happened in this patch. Just a few changes here and there. Nothing too crazy. But like I said, the big one will be patch 4.1, which releases in just a few weeks' time. So that will be when we have new tank items, new champions as well, with Urgot and Twitch will be coming out. I don't know the exact date of them, but they're coming out in a 4.1 patch cycle. You have... you know, probably some other changes as well to some other champions and items and everything. So there'll be a lot of changes in patch 4.1. But yeah, that's it for this video. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Again, any questions or anything with any champions being in a certain tier and what my thoughts are of any champions, and then do let me know down in the comments. But as always, stay safe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.